You haven't figured that out at all. I just love Christmas songs. I love the fact that we just were led in a bunch of Christmas carols. And I'm just glad you guys are here this morning. My name is Jeff. I'm one of the pastors here at Open Bible. And you are just now joining us. We've been in week 4 now of a series we've been calling Songs of Hope. Christmas songs of hope, because as we're looking at Christmas songs can kind of tend to evoke all kinds of memories from past experiences and past traditions and past Christmases, and it's really been kind of an amazing series. If you missed last week, man, Pastor Ed knocked it out of the park, and you really need to go online and catch up with, in this series. And as we've been talking about this song, these songs have been kind of highlighting and trying to find some of the meanings of those songs that they might have for us in our lives right here now at Christmas time, the Christmas season. And so today we're going to kind of continue this series, and we're going to look at this song we just sung, right? Joy to the World. How many of you like that song, Joy to the World? How many like the new version that KT just gave us in there, all right? I like that version as well, too, right? And a bunch of us did some Christmas caroling on Friday night around here. We went out into the neighborhoods there, and we froze a little bit, but we sang a lot of songs. We had a really good time. And I don't only just love that song, I like what that song represents for us in our lives. I love just kind of the joy-filled experience that many times Christmas can bring for us in our lives. And I'd go so far to say that our world needs a little bit more joy. Would you agree with me? And when our world and our lives are infused with a little bit more joy, it's just kind of a special experience for us. Now, at the same time, I also recognize that Christmas season can be filled of what I would call joy busters, right? I love to think that every single person's life, as they're navigating this holiday season, this Christmas season, was just nothing but filled with awesomeness and a joy-filled experience. But we know that many times that there are just kind of joy busters that come at us during the Christmas season. That many times that somebody's experiencing some intense difficulty, or maybe they're feeling some extreme loneliness. And the Christmas season kind of has a way of magnifying those feelings, and it becomes kind of a joy buster for us in our lives. For some of us, we know this Christmas season we're going to kind of go and interact with some people that maybe, we go a whole year without seeing on purpose, right? And so the thought of kind of going back and sitting down to some of those tension-filled relationships, just kind of the thought of that begins to kind of build up in us, and tension begins to build, anxiety begins to build. It's a little bit of a joy buster if we're honest about it. If you haven't done your Christmas shopping yet, you plan on going out this afternoon or tomorrow, maybe even a last-minute shopper on Christmas Eve, and face all of those crowds and all of the traffic, I can tell you, boy, that's a joy buster for you. Maybe you're at one of your Christmas parties, you're celebrating at work, or maybe in your neighborhood and they ran out of eggnog. That's a joy buster. How many of you love eggnog, right? I was reading that 23% of Americans still owe money on their credit cards due from last year's Christmas purchases. That's definitely a joy killer, a joy buster, right? And there's a lot of these joy busters that kind of happen along the way, but what if joy that comes from God has nothing to do with our circumstances? What if joy was not tied to our circumstances? What if joy had nothing to do with what was going on, with any of the gifts that I might be receiving under the tree, or all the presents I'm trying to buy for someone else? What if it had nothing to do with any of the Christmas traditions, or all the things and the songs that we love and that happen and we get a chance to experience during the Christmas season? What if joy had nothing to do with sometimes the financial pressure and stress that we feel around this time of year? One of the things we know, that very first Christmas story, was that when God sent His Son Jesus into the world, was that joy came with the person of Christ. I mean, as we look at that story, we listened to that story, we sang about that story, and Juan recited it for us from memory, which is amazing. But I got to tell you, English isn't his first language, right? So for him to be able to recite any of that is absolutely amazing. To be able to recite as much as he did was just blowing me away. But he gives us a story from Luke chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. There's this moment where the shepherds were in the field, and they were kind of minding their own business. They were just kind of tending to their flocks, and these angels kind of showed up on the scene. And here's what it says. It says, "But the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord.'" It was just kind of a great moment, of great news. It was a moment that they were kind of proclaiming that joy had entered into the world through the person of Christ. Now notice this, joy didn't come because of the circumstances that were going on in their life. Because the circumstances that kind of was going on in that first century, they weren't really so great during the time that Jesus entered into the world. The world was actually struggling with quite a bit of different things. And even in the characters in the Christmas story, Pastor Ed reminded us last week, they were in the midst of all of this turmoil, their own turmoil. Think about it. Mary was pregnant with this child who was not Joseph's. Think about the rumors, think about the pressures, think about all the odd looks that they would have gotten from people as they journeyed along the way. And then she comes to full term, and there's this moment where she's going to have this baby, and there's no room for them in the inn, and they have to think about delivering this child, and they end up turning this animal stable into a maternity ward. The circumstances were not optimal. And not only that, if you look about what was going on in the world politically and within the government, there was this guy by the name of King Herod, when Jesus entered the world those first couple of years. And if you don't like our politics, boy, you really wouldn't have liked King Herod. He was a kind of a wicked man, and he was kind of the Roman governor of the entire area. He heard that there was a child that was to be born that was supposed to be a king. And he felt paranoid, he felt pressured, he felt threatened, and very fearful of the moment of his position. And so he let out a decree stating that every male child under the age of 2 was to be killed. Just think about the weeping and the wailing that the world would have had and would have presented in the entire area, in the entire region. The circumstances were not great. But yet, the Bible proclaimed joy has still arrived. It's kind of one of those things where we begin to recognize that joy is not about the changing of our circumstances, not whether things are going well for us or not necessarily. Joy, correctly understood, is not a gift or a holiday or a circumstance. It's actually a person by the name of Jesus. And joy came in the person of Jesus in such a way that it permeates any and every circumstance. The beauty of what we recognize here is that joy doesn't come based on human happenings or based on human activity. That true joy, through God's intervention, it comes through God's intervention and through God's activity in the world. And so the question then becomes for us, how can I experience this joy? For you and for I, maybe we're experiencing things that kind of give us some great joy this season, and I hope that you really are. But for some of us, our circumstances are not optimal. They're not the best, but it doesn't mean we still can't experience the joy that came in the person of Christ. Because again, joy is not about human activity, it's not about our circumstances, it's about the intervention of God's activity in our lives. And so today I want to look at this song, and as we're looking at the song Joy to the World, KT reminded us that Isaac Watts wrote this song in 1719, some 300 years ago. And now what most people don't know, and she clued us into this morning, is that Isaac Watts kind of basically paraphrased Joy to the World from Psalms 98. And that it kind of served as an inspiration to kind of write this song, Joy to the World. And so what I'd like to do, if you have your Bibles, I'd like for you to open up to Psalms 98 this morning. Maybe there's a Bible on the end of your pew, you can pull up on your electronic device. The words maybe are in your bulletin, and hopefully we'll have it up on the screens as well. Psalms 98, turn there, it's about halfway through the Bible. Now when you think about these ancient psalms, basically there's this collection of psalms. Think about kind of it like the Billboard Top 100 list, even though in Psalms there's like 150 of them, but work with me here on this, right? But basically it's kind of like the most popular songs of the time and of that day were put into this collection of songs, and that song, Psalm 98, serves as the basis of what we now know to be the song Joy to the World. So if you want to experience joy, not only this Christmas season, but in such a way that it's really something special for us that you can experience even through any season of life, the first thing I think you need to discover that you'll see here in Psalms 98 is always be somebody that remembers the past. Always be somebody that remembers the past. Psalms 98, I'm reading from the Message on this one. And hopefully we have the message on the screen and in the bulletins as well. But verse 1, help me out when we get to the red letter. It says this: sing to God a brand new song. He made a world of wonders. He rolled up his sleeves. He set things right. God made history with salvation. He showed the world what he could do. He remembered to love us, a bonus to his dear family, Israel, indefatigable love. By the way, I never heard that word before in my entire life before I read that here in the message here this last week. I had to look over there and to look it up. And it actually means tireless or relentless. And so God's for you never stops. It never ceases. It's tireless. It's relentless. God's love for you is indefatigable. It's an indefatigable type of love, apparently. And the verse goes on to say that the whole earth comes to attention. Look, God's work of salvation. So basically what the psalmist does is he causes us to look and to remember. Just to kind of remember the difficulty of our past. And if we're honest, plenty of us have colorful histories that we would love to forget. But there's some things that we should never forget. We should never forget the amazing work that God has done in our lives throughout history. Now, candidly speaking, I'm not much of a sentimental type of person. I don't know how many of you are sentimental or you're sentimental type of people. There's some people, you got some objects around your house that's in there that have really great, special, amazing meaning to you. Those of you know me, you know I'm not a very sentimental kind of guy, right? I'm a little gruff on the outside. If you haven't noticed that yet. But my wife is a little more sentimental than I am. But there's some things that kind of have meaning to other folks that really sometimes don't make sense to me. But they really have such meaning for them that they can't let go of them. They're really important to them. They really cling to them. They really hold on to some things in their lives. For example, we have some things from our kids that they made literally years and years ago, 20 plus years ago that's in there. And we got, in shoe boxes all around the house that's in there. And even though I'm not a very sentimental kind of guy, I'm okay with holding on to those things because, it captures kind of a part of our children's childhood, right? For us. Like there are a couple of Christmas ornaments that our kids made that I had that was up here. Did somebody take those? Oh, no, here they are. Oh, yeah. I'll bring them up on the screen as well, too, because it might be hard for you to see them in real life. I took them off the tree this morning just to show them to you that's in there. There's one that Jeffrey made. There's one that Cherish made that's in there. They got their little pictures in there. They cut them out. They're halfway falling apart. All the little bells are just about off those things. All the glitter is about falling off the center. But you know what? We still hang them on the tree. I literally took them off the tree to bring them here this morning. Now there's a few objects in our house where kind of the role is reversed, right? It's kind of like an object. I got an object that my wife doesn't really like. She kind of hates it, but I can't really let go of it. It's a really important thing for them, so I brought one of them here for you this morning. Look at this baby right here. Does this not represent all the Christmas that's in there? And let me give you a little bit of backstory. When my kids were really little, I bought them all some Christmas stockings that were in there. I was a single dad. It was kind of one of our first Christmases together there. And man, this thing was Christmas, baby. This screamed Christmas to us in there. Now I know for some of you are looking at it, you go, that's the ugliest green thing I've ever seen. But for me, man, this thing looks over there and just screams Christmas, right? Now the interesting thing is I love this thing. My wife hates this thing. My wife has tried to get rid of this thing several different times. She's tried to throw it away. She tries to bury it at the bottom of the Christmas box in there, hoping that I won't remember it or see where it's at. It's in there. But for me, this is one of the most important decorations in our entire house. I think that it needs to be prominently displayed on our, if not the centerpiece on the Christmas dinner table, then definitely on the upstairs mantle, right? It's in there. It deserves that kind of space, but my wife doesn't agree. So really, what do you do when you and your wife don't look over there and agree about something that's sentimental? Well, we compromise and it goes downstairs where nobody really goes downstairs and ever really kind of sees this thing. And it kind of makes me think about this. If you think about anything that you hold as sentimental, most likely it's sentimental because of who it reminds you of, right? And it kind of reminds you of their love, and it kind of gives you joy in the present as you hold on to it and you remember it and you reminisce a little bit. I know people that have held on to different things that represent somebody that they've lost in the past, that have gone on home before the Lord, before them. And somebody maybe that's meaningful to them, that has great meaning to them, maybe a mentor or a coach or a family member, because of something maybe that they had done for them, or this love and appreciation that they felt from them. It's really meaningful for them in their past. And it's that past remembrance that kind of gives us joy in the present. And what the psalmist reminds us of is that that is true about God as well. God made history with salvation. Like history with deliverance. And when he says history, he's not just talking about world history, although no doubt God fundamentally changed the world that very first Christmas. But he's not talking just about the fact that God made changes for world history. He's saying God changed your personal history in a very personal way. And so for many of us, we look back in our lives when we first met Christ, and we can see God's fingerprints all over our lives. We can see where God made personal history in our own journey. And my assumption is this, for those of us who are here today in this room, or for maybe those that are joining online, the truth among all of us is that there are those of us that we have this past where we were once lost, and now we've been found. There was a time when we were lost, but now we've been found. There were those of us who were once like riddled with addiction, feeling incredibly helpless, but now they're on the road to recovery. They've got a year or 2 or 3 or maybe even more years behind them, and oh, what joy that brings to them now. There were people who were once living in volatile anger, but now they live with this abiding peace that almost really doesn't make sense to them anymore. There were those of us who experienced intense loneliness in the past, and now we feel like we are completely known, that somebody knows us, the inside and out, like nobody else really could. And not only are we completely known, we're still completely loved, even though we're fully known. There are those of us who were on the brink of relationship destruction, but God, by His amazing grace, has brought reconciliation, and we've never been in a better place than we are right now. And the greatest thing in the world is that God not only made history of salvation, God made history with your salvation, right? This Christmas, we should remember that. That should bring us joy. God changed my life. Well, you wouldn't like me before God. And God changed my journey. And if I remember the past, not just the things that I'd like to forget, but if I remember the things that I should never forget, the amazing thing and the amazing work that God has done in my life, His tireless, His relentless, His indefatigable love, that should give us joy in the present. And so we remember the past, but we also learn to celebrate the present. We also learn to celebrate the present. I don't know about you and your experience, but sometimes this is something that's really difficult for me. If you know anything about my Bible studies, God's pretty much dealing with me, and you get to hear it on Sunday morning, really, is what that's really all about. And I struggle in this area. It's difficult for me to live in the present. A lot of times I'm so busy, and I'm always thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, and planning and working on different things. It's just hard for me to live in the moment. And sometimes it's difficult for me to kind of really kind of maximize the moment. I also think that many times that's because also that the present also sometimes feels unpleasant, right? Any of you ever had that time where the present kind of feels unpleasant and you want to kind of go somewhere else? That's probably true for a lot of us. So when the present feels unpleasant, right? I want to go somewhere else. I want to be someone else. I want to do something else. And so maybe I'll kind of go back to the past, or I'll think about a possible future, and sometimes it's hard for me to be mindful of the present. I ran across a couple pictures this week of a few animals. By looking at their faces that are in there, you can tell that the present kind of feels unpleasant for them, right? Here's the first one I want to bring up with you, right? Look at this guy. Right? Look at that face that's on there. He's kind of like, he's going to put this antler on me one more time, right? He doesn't look very pleasant, does he? Let's pull up the second one that's in here. Look at this guy's face, right? If that doesn't communicate unpleasantness, I don't know what does. He's kind of like, I'm going to bite somebody. He put me in one more elf outfit that's in there, right? So pull up this last one. This is one of my favorite ones. Look. I'm not even sure what kind of animal that is. but it definitely doesn't look like it's pleasant, right? It looks like it's having a very unpleasant time. And so sometimes the present feels somewhat unpleasant, and because of that, we fail to see the joy in the moment and truly celebrate and live and experience in that moment. And you know, when I look at the lives of children, it's probably the one thing that teaches me the most about joy in my entire life. You know, our house has been an empty house for quite a while. We've got the Rios family with us, and we've been really enjoying that and having young ones around us, man. It's just something about it that just brings joy in our life because they just know how to be in the moment, right? And one of the things, you know, for their family, they experienced snow for the very first time here last week, and it was an amazing experience for them. The snow was falling. They were running around out there. They got their tongues out trying to catch the snowflakes. I mean, they were just in the moment of that time. They were present in everything that was going on. I'm telling you, kids can be some of the most joy-filled people in the entire world that I'm ever around. They don't have a whole lot of bad days in their life, and even when they do, it doesn't last really long because they just live and they know how to live in the present. They just maximize the present. And maybe it's partly because they haven't had a whole lot of bad history that kind of, you know, cloud their present that's in there. But they don't have a whole lot of anxiety and stress about the future either. They just kind of figure out a way to have fun and to kind of hang on to every single moment. I'll give you a couple pictures of them hanging out in the snow. Here's the first one in there. Now it's freezing. It's 95 degrees in Aruba, but they're rolling in the snow making snow angels that are out there, right? Let me pull the second one up that's in here, right? This is their second attempt at a snowman that's in there. The deer came along later on and ate that carrot nose out of that snowman. We live up on the foothills that's there. And then here's this last one here. They were on Suicide Hill, and they didn't care. They were screaming down their sledding through all of the snow. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look in those pictures, you can get this sense that they're just enjoying every single moment. And what I often miss is that joy can only be experienced in the right here and now. Joy can only be experienced in the present. And if I'm not present, if I'm not present in the moment, I'll miss what God has for me right here in the here and now. I can't experience joy in the past. I can't experience joy in the future. I might be able to remember it. I might be able to recall it. I might be able to dream about a possibility of a possible future, but I don't get to experience it unless I'm in the moment. And joy is experienced right now, and joy is not based on human activity. Joy is based on God's activity through and in our lives. And here's what the psalmist says about this particular idea. He says this, he says, shout your praises to God, everybody. Let loose. Again, kids have no problems with this, right? Let loose and sing. Strike up the band. Round up an orchestra to play for God. Add a 100-voice choir. Feature trumpets and big trombones. Fill the air, help me out with praises to King God. Let the sea and its fish give a round of applause with everything living on earth joining in. Let the ocean breakers call out encore and the mountains harmonize the finale. So you just get this sense of a celebratory tone, a celebratory scene. And it's this amazing scene that's kind of taking place, and what you'll see is there's the singing, there's the music, there's the dancing, all those things, but really they allude to one fact, is that they're really just kind of simply embracing the moment of being able to praise God. It's just simply being present. And joy is not only found in the present, right? It's only found in the present, I'm sorry. It can only be experienced in the present. And many times we don't experience joy around Christmas season because of all the hustle and the bustle and all the planning and all trying to run and grab gifts and all the things that I've got to look over there and do. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I just simply fail to be in the present. Fail to be with the people that I love. And joy is found in the present. And so here's my encouragement to you as much as it is my encouragement to myself, because sometimes, like I said, I struggle with it. And that's this Christmas. Listen, be present. Be present. Joy is found and experienced in the present. And that might look a little bit different for many of us in our lives, right? For me, it might look like kind of turning off a lot of the noise and maybe canceling some things on my calendar, really kind of dialing in to what matters the most. And so maybe I get around those that I love the most. I turn off the TV, I turn off the phones. put on a Christmas album and just being with them and laughing and talking and singing. Maybe it's just about kind of engaging in a conversation with more active listening than it really is about talking. Maybe it's about kind of reading the Christmas story in Luke 2, which Juanado just recited for us, right? Maybe you kind of declare an Amish day in your house and just get rid of all the technology, with all those that you love. And I don't know what it looks like for you, but I want to encourage you, just take some steps, some active steps, so that you can be present with those that you love in your life. And I tell you one thing, it definitely includes certainly be here for Christmas Eve. At OBBC, we plan on having a great Christmas Eve service, and we invite you once we come and be part of that. We're going to have a candlelight service. We're going to sing some Christmas songs together. Hopefully we're going to have a good, encouraging, reflective message on what the Christmas message really is all about, the season really is all about. We're going to take some communion together. And afterwards, we're going to have some fellowship and some eggnog. We won't run out of eggnog, I promise. So I'm not going to give you no joy busters when it comes to that. But it gives us a chance to kind of show up and be present for the celebration of the Christ child kind of coming into our world. And here's my encouragement also to you, not only for you to be present, but to bring some people with you. I tell you, there's no greater joy this Christmas season that you'll experience than if you invite a friend or a coworker or neighbor or a family member, somebody you love, to kind of hang out with you, man. And maybe you invite them to Christmas dinner, or maybe you to some of your Christmas activities, or maybe to the Christmas Eve service here. And you just kind of watch them experience Christmas, and you watch it through their eyes. And I tell you, somebody maybe who's currently far from God, or maybe who's lonely, and they begin to kind of lean into God for the first time. Somebody might be struggling with something, emotionally or financially, and you kind of surround them with some love and really help them to connect with God and experience the love and the joy that only He can bring into their lives, and help them experience renewal and new life, man. That'll be an amazing Christmas experience for you if you think about doing that. I tell you, there's no greater joy in all the world than if you are being used by God, if you're on the front lines to help facilitate life change into somebody that you love and you care about. So grab some invite cards, go online, invite folks that's in their social media, whatever you do, be present. Joy is found in the moment. So joy is not encountered just through human activity, right? Joy is found in God's intervention and His activity in our world. So we remember the past, we celebrate the present, and then lastly we look to the future. We look to the future. Again, to look to the future. Look at how the psalmist continues in Psalms 98. It says this: a tribute to God when He comes. When He comes to set the earth right, He will straighten the whole world. He will put the world right and everyone in it. It's kind of this really powerful statement where the psalmist doesn't just kind of look behind. He's not just kind of maximizing the present. He begins to look to the future with hope. And as he does that, it begins to bring joy. The song Joy to the World, when it was originally written, it wasn't written as a Christmas song. The song Joy to the World was really originally written about the second coming of Jesus. Not just His first coming at that first Christmas, not just a look to the past, but it really was a look ahead, a look to the future. It's kind of a look ahead that if you can see it, if you can understand it, if you can wrap your mind around it, if you can meditate on this, it can have great impact for your life today. I mean, I think about people who are looking ahead this time of year. Nobody's looking ahead more than children, right? I mean, at Christmas time, they're looking forward to Christmas morning, right? And kids can't wait for Christmas. They make their Christmas list. They're anticipating, they're seeing Christmas gifts pile up around the Christmas tree, and they've got great anticipation moving into Christmas morning. I remember some years ago, I asked my kids to write out a Christmas list, because I had this kind of idea to help them out. I sit them in front of the computer and pull up a website so they can kind of browse through some different things, and they could generate a list and kind of give them some ideas. And so I gave them quite a bit of time, and I came back probably about 45 minutes later, and Jeffrey had this long list, and everything on the list was a Nerf product. It was a Nerf ball, it was a Nerf gun, it was Nerf darts, it was Nerf shield, and there was like 20 items that were all Nerf, right? And I'm like, okay, buddy, I get the idea. You like Nerf, but isn't there something else that you'd like to look over there and have besides all these Nerf products in there? He goes, well, yeah, but I couldn't change the page. We had dial-up internet back then. Those of you who know what I'm talking about know that was some difficulty in loading those new pages up in there. So he couldn't see ahead, and really, listen, it's hard to be hopeful about something that you can't see. And what's interesting is that sometimes when it comes to spirituality, and sometimes when we think about what God might do in the future, we get so disillusioned in the present and about what's going on with us in the present, that we don't see clearly and keeping our mind focused on what God has promised that He's going to do. And the beauty of what God has promised that He's going to do, the beauty of that promise is that the end has already been written. I don't know exactly how your story is going to play out. I don't know exactly how my story is going to play out. There's going to be all kinds of twists and turns and ups and downs, and there's going to be some good and there's going to be some bad. There's going to be some intensely amazing things. There's going to be some really extremely difficult things. But in the midst of all the things that are going to go on, I know how the story is going to end. And because I know how the story is going to end, I know that even in it all, even when it doesn't feel like it, even when it maybe even feel debilitating for us or debilitating for us, but what I know is that when I connect my life to the person of Jesus, the person who came to bring joy into the world, I will be victorious. And when I connect my life to the person of Jesus, I'll be able to overcome anything that comes my way. I don't know what's going to happen every single time in every single circumstance in my life, with my job, with my family, with my health, but I know the end of the story, and when you know the end of the story, it has such a great impact on how I get to experience the present. It kind of reminds me of this young boy who was reading with his mom in bed many different nights, and they were reading this book together. It was kind of a series of this Western books, the collection that he was reading together, and in this series of books he had this cowboy figure that really kind of was his hero, and he loved these stories, and he would read there with his mom at night, and sometimes the stories would, in the child's mind, felt really intensely difficult, anxious for him. I mean, the story would have all kinds of plot changes and twists and turns and ups and downs and kind of these cliffhanger moments, and the boy would get so nervous about what would be going on in the story that sometimes he would even go to bed crying at night, and he would lose sleep at night, and the stress of it all was kind of overwhelming for him, and so much so that his mom just kind of got to the point and said, "Look, buddy, if you're not going to be able to read these stories and not have all this anxiousness and anxiety and not be able to go to sleep at night, I don't think we're going to be able to read these series of books anymore." And so she kind of had an idea, and she said, "Listen, son, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Maybe if we read the end of the story first, maybe that'll help you as you go." And so she said, "Okay, Mom, let's try it." And so they got that night, they got the first of the story, they read the end first for that book in that series they were going to read. And after they got done reading the end of the story, they turned back to the beginning of the story, and they began to read, and the story still had some intense moments. There still were these cliffhangers, there were still these challenging spots, but under his breath, his mom could hear him say, "Don't worry about it. If you knew what I know, it's going to be okay." And here's the truth. I don't know everything in your journey. I don't know the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the good and the bad. But I do know the end of the story for those of you whose lives are connected to the person of Jesus. And so whatever's going on in your life, if you knew what I knew, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And when we set our eyes on the future, and we're willing to look ahead to what God is going to ultimately do in our life through the person of Jesus, that this baby born in a manger is going to come back again one day, and when he comes, he's going to come back victorious, and he's going to set all things right. Gives us this peace and this confidence, the joy to live in the moment no matter what's going on all around us in our lives. Joy doesn't come through human activity, through circumstances, through gifts. It comes through the intervention of God's activity and through the person of Jesus Christ in our lives. And so, though we remember the past and we remember what God has done, because of that we can celebrate the present, and hopefully we can look ahead to the promise and the conviction of what God is ultimately going to do, that one day He's going to set everything right. And I don't know where you are in your journey, but as Christmas Day approaches, at least the day that we celebrate is Christmas, the greatest moment of what God has done in all of history by sending His Son into the world. Maybe, just maybe, we're not just celebrating His birthday. Maybe for some of you who are here this morning, we can celebrate a new birthday for you, a second chance for you, a do-over in life for you. Because it's when your life gets connected to the life of Jesus that everything else fundamentally becomes different. It's not necessary that all of our circumstances change for us in our lives, right, when that happens. But when we have access to this joy that we've been reading about, to the meaning, to the purpose that God brings to us in our lives through the person of Jesus. And if you've never yielded your life to Him, if you've never given your life over to Him, why not do it this Christmas season? This season would be a great time for you to do it. It would always be this mark in your life. You'll be able to look back and remember what God has done for you in your life. And every Christmas, moving forward, you'll not only be able to celebrate His birthday, Jesus' birthday, but you'll be able to celebrate your birthday, the second chance in a new life that God has given to you through His Son, Jesus. And so